Welcome to our deep dive, all about being a landlord in Princeton, Texas. We're going to tackle tenant placement and property management. And, it's a lot, especially with how much the real estate market's been changing lately.
Yeah, no kidding. It can be really tricky to keep up. That's why we're talking all about Andika Duncan today. She's a real estate broker who's been working in Princeton since 2013. So think of this as your crash course on how to not just survive, but really thrive as a landlord in Princeton.
So let's get right into it. One of the biggest things for landlords is finding good tenants. What are some things Andika looks for when she's screening applicants? To
Uh,
kind of,
that-
figure out who's going to be reliable.
Well, one of the first things she always says is you got to go deeper than just the surface level. Yeah, a 600 credit score and making 3 times the rent is important, but it's also about the bigger picture. Even if someone's never rented before, Andika looks at whether they've had any foreclosures. It's about understanding their whole financial history, not just like a little snapshot.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's easy to just get stuck on those numbers. So, okay, let's talk about the Princeton rental market itself. We know there's a lot of inventory available right now, but is it actually a good time to be a landlord in Princeton?
Right, that's the big question everyone wants to know. What's interesting is that Andika thinks this might actually be a good time because interest rates are so high, people are renting instead of buying. So it might actually be a golden opportunity for landlords. It's all about supply and demand.
That makes sense. So how does Ondika actually help landlords figure out how much to charge for rent? Because, you want to attract tenants, but also make money.
Andika is all about using data. She looks at comparable properties that have rented recently to figure out what a realistic price would be for your specific property. It's not just about picking a random number, it's about being strategic and looking at market trends.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, what about those times when a property just needs a little something extra to really stand out and attract those good tenants? Any tips from Ondika on that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. She has this whole checklist she gives landlords. It covers everything from curb appeal to interior upgrades. It's those little details that really make a difference.
Okay, so let's get into the legal stuff. Lease agreements can be so confusing for landlords. What does Ondika do to make that process easier and make sure everything's legal?
One thing that stands out about Andika is that she's all about being transparent
Yeah.
and making sure everything's clear for everyone. She uses the standard TRSC residential lease, which is made specifically to comply with Texas laws, so landlords can feel good knowing they're doing things the right way.
Okay, that makes sense. That's huge to have that kind of support. Okay, so let's walk through the move-in process. What does Ondika do to make sure that goes smoothly for both the landlord and the tenant?
Andika is all about having the right paperwork, so she provides everything you need. The lease agreement, of course, a pet agreement if that's needed, and a really detailed inventory form for both the tenant and the landlord to fill out so everyone knows the condition of the property. It's about starting off on the right foot.
Yeah, that organization is so important. So I know not all landlords want to be super hands-on. What are the different options Ondika offers for property management?
That's where Andika's flexibility really comes in. You can choose her tenant placement service, which just focuses on finding and screening tenants. Or if you want to be totally hands-off, she offers full property management services. So she handles everything from rent collection to maintenance. It's all about finding what works best for you.
That's great to have those options. Okay, now let's talk about the stuff no landlord wants to deal with. Lease violations and property damage. How does Ondika handle those situations?
Andika is really proactive about this kind of stuff. She always stresses how important it is to document everything and to gather evidence if there's a violation or damage, like taking photos, keeping written records, and a log of all communication.
This is like having a paper trail in case things get messy.
Exactly. But it's not just about documentation. Andika also believes in talking to the tenant right away. She'll explain the violation and what part of the lease it breaks, and give the tenant a chance to fix the problem. It's about being direct, but also professional.
That makes a lot of sense. So what happens if the tenant just ignores the issue or doesn't try to fix it?
If talking doesn't work, Andika will take a more formal approach. She'll give the tenant a notice of default or a lease violation. That explains what could happen if they don't fix the problem.
So there are real consequences for not following the lease. Okay, so let's say there's property damage that needs to be repaired. Who takes care of that? And how does Ondika make sure the landlord doesn't have to pay for it?
Andika handles coordinating all the repairs. But what's important is that she makes sure everything's done legally. She'll bill the tenant directly for the repairs. Or, if it's allowed under Texas law, she can deduct it from their security deposit. So the landlord is protected.
That's good to know. But sometimes things get really bad and you have to go to court. What happens in those situations where you might need to evict a tenant?
Andika knows that eviction should be a last resort. But sometimes it's necessary. Like if the violation is really serious or the damage isn't fixed, in those cases, she might have to involve lawyers to start the eviction process.
Eviction can be so complicated, especially in Texas. How does Andika make sure everything's done correctly?
Andika is super careful to follow all the Texas eviction guidelines. For example, she knows that you have to give a 3-day notice to vacate before you can take any legal action. It's all about dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
It sounds like Andika has a really solid system for handling those tough situations. But I imagine it's always better to prevent problems in the first place. What does Andika do to try to stop those problems from happening?
One thing I really like about Andika's approach is that she educates tenants. She makes sure they understand the lease completely from the start so everyone knows what's expected of them.
It's so smart to be clear up front. Are there other things she does to prevent problems?
Yeah, she's a big believer in doing regular property inspections to catch small problems before they become big ones. And of course, her tenant screening process is really important to avoid renting to people who might cause problems.
So it's like a multi-layered approach.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about support. Being a landlord can be overwhelming, so it's important to have someone you can rely on. What does Andika offer in terms of communication and support for landlords?
Andika believes in personalized service, so she gives each landlord a specific person to contact, so there's no confusion about who to talk to.
That's helpful. What about updates? How often can a landlord expect to hear from Andika or their contact person?
Andika makes sure to keep landlords in the loop. She sends regular updates, suggests improvements, and talks about things like rent adjustments or changes in the market.
And what about potential tenants when they're applying? Is Andika available to answer their questions?
Definitely. Andika knows that a smooth application process is important, so she's there to answer any questions tenants might have and to make sure everything's clear from the beginning.
This has been so helpful. We've covered so much, from finding good tenants to handling legal issues and all those challenges that can come up.
Yeah, we have. And there's even more to talk about. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to get into the details of property management and give you some practical tips and strategies. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Andika Duncan, a local real estate broker right here in Princeton, Texas. And I specialize in helping small business investors like you make the most of your rental properties. I know how much care and hard work goes into owning and managing rental properties because I approach my business the same way. You're not just another client to me. Your success is my priority. My goal is to make your life easier while helping you grow your investment. When you work with me, you get more than a service. You get a partner who's committed to helping your property thrive. From tenant placement to full-service property management, I provide personalized solutions that fit your unique needs. I'll handle everything to make sure you are set up for success, starting with professional property listings, stunning photography, and even virtual staging to attract the best tenants. My tenant screening process is thorough, including background checks, credit reports, and income verification, so you get reliable tenants you can trust. Once your property is rented, I'll take care of the day-to-day management like collecting rent, handling tenant communication, and coordinating maintenance requests. You can rely on me to make sure things run smoothly. And to keep you in the loop, I provide detailed monthly reports so you always know how your property is performing. As a small business owner myself, I know the value of personal touch and dedication. I see your investment not just as a property, but as an important part of your family's future. When you work with me, you're getting a local expert who genuinely cares about your success. Let's work together to turn your rental property into a stress-free and profitable investment. I'm here to take the burden off your shoulders and help you achieve your goals. Give me a call today and let's talk about how I can support you every step of the way. I'm Andika Duncan and I'm ready to invest in your success.
Welcome back to our deep dive on property management in Princeton, Texas.
Okay, so let's really get into the details of property management. Rent collection, maintenance, all that stuff, the everyday things landlords have to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. And what I noticed about Andika's approach is she's really big on systems and having processes in place. It's not just about reacting to problems, it's about preventing them.
That makes sense. So let's start with rent collection. That's like the most important thing. How does Andika make sure rent gets paid on time? and avoid late fees and all those headaches.
Andika believes in setting clear expectations from the very beginning, so she makes sure tenants know exactly when rent is due, how they can pay, and what the late fees are. It's all spelled out in the lease, so there's no confusion.
That's so important. Are there any other strategies she uses to encourage on-time payments?
One thing that's becoming really popular is online payment options, and Andika's a big fan of those. It's just so convenient for tenants, and it gives you a clear record of every transaction, so you have fewer late payments.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's move on to maintenance. That's another big one for landlords. How does Andika handle repair requests?
She has a really efficient system. Tenants can submit requests online or by phone, and she has a whole network of contractors who are reliable and do good work, so they can handle any problems quickly.
So you don't have to scramble to find someone at the last minute.
Exactly. And she keeps the landlord updated every step of the way, so you know what's going on. And you're comfortable with the solutions and the costs.
That's so helpful.
Yeah.
What about those big unexpected repairs, like if the roof needs to be replaced or the AC breaks down?
Andika is a big believer in preventative maintenance, so she tries to catch problems early on, before they turn into major expenses. But of course, sometimes those big repairs just happen. And when they do, she's there to help. She'll work with the landlord to get quotes from different contractors and help them make the best decision.
So it's about having a plan even for the unexpected.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about maximizing rental income. How does Andika help landlords get the most out of their investments?
Well, she really knows the Princeton rental market. She keeps up with all the trends, and she helps landlords set the right rent price, one that's competitive but also profitable.
So it's about finding that balance.
Exactly. And sometimes she might suggest doing some upgrades to make the property more appealing and justify a higher rent. Even small things like fresh paint or new appliances can make a difference.
It's all about making the property more desirable. Okay, now let's be real. Being a landlord comes with a lot of legal and financial responsibilities. Security deposits, property taxes, insurance, all that stuff. How does Andika help landlords navigate all of that?
It can be overwhelming, for sure, but Andika provides guidance on all of that. She makes sure landlords understand the laws and regulations, and she helps them handle everything correctly, like managing security deposits and filing the right tax documents.
It sounds like she's like a property management expert.
Exactly. She wants landlords to feel confident and supported.
We've covered so much in this deep dive, from screening tenants to handling those day-to-day tasks and all the legal and financial stuff.
We have, and there's still more to come. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll wrap things up with some key takeaways so you can walk away with some actionable advice. Stay with us.
Are you tired of the hassles of being a landlord in Princeton, Texas? Don't let tenant issues and property management headaches keep you up at night. Andika Duncan and Princeton Rental Property Management offer personalized solutions, including tenant placement or full property management. Andika's proactive approach, using data-driven insights and clear communication, will keep your property profitable and your tenants happy. Focus on what matters most. Call Andika Duncan today at 214-495-1951 for a free consultation.
Welcome back to our deep dive. It's the final part. And we've talked a lot about Andika Duncan and how she does things, but let's break it down. Give our listeners some advice they can actually use.
Yeah, sounds good.
So let's say you're a brand new landlord in Princeton. What's the one thing Andika would tell you? Like the most important piece of advice?
Well, Andika always says, do your homework. Really research the market. Learn about the landlord-tenant laws in Texas, and figure out how involved you want to be. Do you want to do everything yourself, or would you rather have a property manager like Andika handle it? It's all about knowing what you're getting into.
That makes sense. What about landlords who've been doing this for a while, but maybe they're feeling overwhelmed? Any tips for them?
Andika's all about using technology to make things easier. You know, online payments for rent, systems for handling maintenance requests, even signing leases online. It saves so much time, and it makes everything more organized.
Those are some good practical tips. Okay, what about someone who's thinking about investing in rental property in Princeton? What's the one thing they should consider before they jump in?
Andika would say location, location, location. It's all about the location. Look at the neighborhood, the amenities, the types of tenants who live there. Is it good for families or more for young professionals? Understanding those things is so important.
This has been so insightful. Andika Duncan really knows her stuff when it comes to property management in Princeton.
Yeah, she does. She's got so much experience.
Yeah.
And she really cares about helping landlords succeed.
I was really impressed by her proactive approach and how she emphasizes communication. And she's got systems for everything.
Exactly.
So for all you listeners out there, being a landlord in Princeton doesn't have to be a nightmare. With the right knowledge, the right systems, and maybe the right partner, like on Dika, it can actually be a really good experience.
And remember, we've covered a lot today, but this is just the start. There's always more to learn about property management. The market's always changing.
That's true. It's all about staying informed and being willing to adapt. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into property management in Princeton, Texas. We hope you learned a lot, and we'll see you next time.